All right, so get this. Today we are going deep, deep, deep into the world of customer service supervisors.
Oh, yeah.
We found this awesome article actually on Indeed.com
Okay.
all about interview questions for this exact role.
Cool.
And we're going to kind of use that to decode what it really takes to be successful
I like it.
as a customer service supervisor.
Yeah.
Whether you're thinking about, leading a team someday or just curious about like what makes for just stellar customer service, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. It's interesting because we often focus so much on like the frontline interactions with customer service, but the supervisors
Yeah.
are really kind of like these unsung heroes.
Yeah.
They're the ones shaping the whole experience,
Yeah.
Setting the tone, empowering the team,
Yeah.
really making sure things run smoothly.
Absolutely. So this Indeed article is like our secret decoder ring, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
to understanding what makes a great supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And they highlight 3 kind of core skills that interviewers are really, really focused on.
Okay.
And the first one is communication.
Makes sense.
And you might be thinking, well, duh, communication is important for any customer service role, but
Yeah.
it's more nuanced than just being like polite and clear.
Right. It's almost like being a communication chameleon, right?
Yeah.
Because think about it. You've got
I like that.
frustrated customers sometimes, and then you've got team members who need guidance, and then
Yeah.
you've got, maybe higher-ups who want reports.
Yeah.
So you have to know how to tailor your approach for each of those.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Different audiences, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, what else are interviewers looking for?
So problem solving is another big one,
Okay.
but not just like you're run-of-the-mill, my computer's frozen, can you help me?
Great.
Kind of problem solving.
Right.
They're looking for people who can think outside the box a little bit,
Yeah.
come up with creative solutions,
Yeah.
especially within company policies, and handle those kind of curveball situations that pop up.
Because let's be real, customer service can be a bit of a minefield sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and then speaking of pressure, that's the third core skill
Yeah.
that the article zeroes in on.
Yeah.
It's not just enough to like keep your own cool.
Right.
You got to maintain service quality.
Uh-huh.
Keep your team motivated.
Yeah.
Even when things are just like crazy.
For sure.
I bet those interview questions get pretty intense
Oh, absolutely.
when they're trying to assess how someone handles pressure.
Yeah.
Like, give me an example.
Well, one that really stood out to me was the classic, how do you handle a difficult customer?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's such a classic scenario, but you can learn so much from how someone answers that.
Okay, well, let's unpack that one then.
Yeah.
So the sample answer they give is, they emphasize staying calm, actively listening,
Yeah.
validating the customer's feelings.
Right.
It's not about necessarily agreeing with them,
Yeah.
but just showing them that you hear them,
Yeah.
understand their concerns.
Right. And that all goes back to the whole communication chameleon thing.
Right.
It's about de-escalating the
Okay.
situation
Yeah.
with your words
Yeah.
and with a genuine sense of empathy, even if you're under pressure.
But it's not just about calming the customer down,
No.
right? The sample answer also talks about like finding a solution
Yeah.
that works for both the customer and the company. There's
Yeah.
got to be some juggling skills there.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's being able to kind of navigate those gray areas where company policy meets the real world.
Exactly.
You want to be able to advocate for the customer, but also be able to explain the reasoning
Right.
behind the company's decision in a way that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's tackling a tough customer. What other interview questions kind of like caught your eye?
This one really made me think, discuss a time when you had to implement a new company policy that your team wasn't happy about. Change management is a huge part of leadership.
Yeah.
And this question is all about kind of gauging a candidate's approach to getting buy-in from their team, even when there's resistance.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, for sure.
So how did the sample answer approach it?
Well, they emphasize, open communication
Okay.
and transparency.
Okay.
So imagine like holding a team meeting,
Yeah.
explaining the reasons for the new policy very clearly, and giving everyone a chance to kind of voice their concerns,
Right.
ask questions.
Yeah.
It's not about just like delivering a top-down message.
Right.
It's about creating a space for dialogue and building that trust.
Now that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with something that's shaking things up.
Right.
All right. On to a question I'm personally fascinated by. How do you motivate your team?
The million-dollar question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's not just about assigning tasks
Right.
and tracking metrics.
Right.
It's about inspiring people
Yeah.
to do their best work.
Totally.
And creating an environment where they feel valued and supported.
So the sample answer in the article talks a lot about building a positive and supportive work environment.
Right.
Things like recognizing great work,
Yeah.
giving regular feedback, creating opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
It's like asking, how can you help your team members
Yeah.
thrive both professionally and personally?
Exactly. And that's where a great supervisor can really make all the difference.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing each person's potential, giving them the tools,
Yeah.
and celebrating their achievements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but doesn't that require, like, knowing each team member on a deeper level?
Yeah.
That sounds like a challenge, especially with larger teams.
You're right. You're right. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
The most effective supervisors
Yeah.
are the ones who can recognize individual contributions and tailor their motivation strategies to each person's strengths and goals.
So it's like personalized motivation.
Yeah.
Instead of just like generic pep talks,
Right.
you're actually figuring out
Yeah.
what makes each person tick.
Precisely. And that level of individual attention can really foster a sense of belonging and purpose within the team.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, those core questions, those give us like a solid foundation, I think.
Yeah.
But the Indeed article goes on to explore some more like nuanced scenarios that interviewers might throw your way.
Yeah, right.
One that really stood out to me was, how do you evaluate success?
Oh, interesting.
I feel like that could vary so much depending on the company and its priorities.
I was wondering about that one too. Like, is it all about those customer sat scores and hitting certain metrics, or is there more to it than just numbers?
And that's exactly why they asked that question.
Okay.
You know, they want to see if you have a well-rounded understanding of how like individual and team performance contributes to the big picture.
Right.
So sure, metrics like those scores and resolution times, those are important.
Right.
But you also need to consider things like team morale, customer feedback, continuous improvement.
So it's about finding that balance between the hard data and then the softer, more qualitative aspects of success.
Exactly. And being able to kind of communicate those measures of success to your team in a way that's meaningful and motivating.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to say, we need to improve our resolution time.
Right.
But it's much more effective to explain how that directly impacts the customer and ultimately the company's goals.
Totally. All right. Another question that jumped out to me was, how do you handle feedback? That one feels relevant to pretty much everyone, not just customer service supervisors.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Being open to feedback, whether it's, glowing praise or constructive criticism, it's essential for growth in any field.
Yeah.
But for supervisors, it's especially crucial because they're kind of at the center of a feedback loop.
Right.
You know, they're getting it from their team, their manager, and even the customers themselves.
So it's like they're constantly learning and adapting.
Right.
But I imagine that can feel overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
Especially if the feedback's conflicting.
That's where those core skills we talked about, like communication and problem solving, come into play again.
Okay.
A skilled supervisor can, synthesize feedback from multiple sources, identify the patterns, and then use that information to make decisions and adjustments.
Okay. Last question from this section that I want to dig into.
Okay.
How do you handle a team member who isn't meeting expectations?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of those situations that I think every supervisor dreads. But it's bound to happen at some point.
It's definitely a tough one, and the way someone answers it can reveal a lot about their leadership style, their approach to people management. Now, the article doesn't give a specific sample answer for this one, but it encourages you to think about how you would approach performance issues constructively and supportively.
So it's not about coming down hard on someone or making them feel bad.
No.
It's about figuring out the root of the problem and working with the team member to improve.
Exactly. It might involve providing additional training or clarifying expectations or even just exploring whether there are underlying issues that are affecting their performance.
Right.
It's about approaching the situation with empathy and a genuine desire to help that team member succeed.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that supervisors are like unsung heroes.
Yeah.
And it really feels like that's true.
Yeah.
They're dealing with so many different challenges behind the scenes.
Right.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the role itself.
Okay.
The Indeed article has a helpful FAQ section that gives us a good overview.
Absolutely. So at its core, a customer service supervisor is responsible for overseeing the day-to-day operations of their team.
Right.
So that includes everything from training and mentoring staff to handling escalated complaints to making sure customers are satisfied.
Right.
They're also involved in developing and implementing customer service policies, monitoring employee performance, and working with management to just improve service delivery overall.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's like they're conductors of a customer service orchestra.
I love that.
Yeah.
Making sure all the different parts work together.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it really highlights the fact that a good supervisor can have a ripple effect throughout the whole organization.
Yeah.
Their leadership directly impacts the customer experience, employee morale.
Right.
And ultimately, the company's bottom line.
So how does someone even get into this kind of role?
Yeah.
Is it just a matter of like working your way up the customer service ladder?
Well, the article touches on this, and it emphasizes that there's not really a single path to becoming a supervisor. It often involves gaining experience in those various customer service roles, developing the core skills we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And sometimes, pursuing formal education or professional development opportunities.
So it sounds like it's not just about climbing the ladder,
Right.
but about building a solid foundation
For sure.
of knowledge and experience.
Exactly. And being passionate about customer service.
All right. Before we wrap things up, I want to touch on a couple of other points that the article mentions.
Okay.
It talks about how customer service supervisors often use various software tools like CRM systems and help desk applications.
Yeah.
Could you kind of break those down for listeners who might not be familiar with those terms?
So think of a CRM or customer relationship management system as kind of a centralized hub for all customer information. So it's where you track interactions, store contact details, and you get like a holistic view of each customer's journey. Now, help desk applications are a little different. Those are designed to streamline the process of managing and resolving customer inquiries and support tickets. They often include features like ticketing systems, knowledge bases, and automation tools.
So these tools are essentially a supervisor's secret weapons for staying organized,
for sure,
efficient, and on top of everything.
Exactly. And as technology continues to evolve, supervisors need to be, adaptable and willing to learn new tools to kind of keep up with the ever-changing landscape.
Right.
Yeah.
And lastly, the article mentions that specific industry knowledge can be a huge asset for customer service supervisors.
Yeah. I mean, imagine the difference between supervising a team at a tech startup versus like a healthcare company or a retail store.
Totally.
Each industry has its own challenges and regulations and customer expectations. So those core customer service principles, those are universal. But the way they're applied can vary widely depending on the context.
That's a great point to keep in mind as we start wrapping up our deep dive.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot essential skills, interview questions, tools of the trade. But what does it all really mean for you, our listener?
That's the key question, right? Whether you're aiming for that supervisor yourself, maybe you're already leading a team, or even if you're just, someone who interacts with customer service a lot, these insights can offer like a valuable new perspective.
Because let's face it, we've all been on the receiving end of customer service, good and bad.
For sure.
Yeah.
And this deep dive really helps us understand what's going on behind the curtain.
Totally.
It's about recognizing that great customer service isn't just about like scripted responses or quick fixes. It's about having those skilled and empowered individuals who can handle the complex situations advocate for the customer
Yeah.
and just continuously try to improve.
And those supervisors, they're the ones kind of like orchestrating that whole experience.
For sure.
They set the tone, guide their team,
Right.
and ultimately shape how a company interacts with its customers.
It makes you think about your own experiences, right? Like, have you ever had an interaction with a customer service supervisor that really stood out?
Oh, I have a story about that.
Okay.
I once had a flight canceled.
Uh-oh.
And the gate agent was, let's just say, not helpful.
Oh, okay.
But then their supervisor stepped in.
Okay.
And they were incredible.
Wow.
They calmed everybody down.
Okay.
They found us alternative flights.
Yeah.
And even went above and beyond to make sure we had meal vouchers and hotel accommodations.
Nice.
Yeah, completely turned around, like a stressful situation.
That's a perfect example of what we've been talking about.
Right.
You know, it's not just about solving that immediate problem. It's about showing that empathy, taking ownership, and going that extra mile to turn a negative experience into a positive one.
It really made me realize, like, the impact a great supervisor can have. They're not just managing a team, you know? They're shaping a company's reputation and building those lasting relationships with the customer.
Absolutely. So the next time you encounter like a truly exceptional customer service experience, just remember there's probably a skilled and dedicated supervisor behind the scenes making it all happen.
That's a fantastic point to end on.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
What qualities have you observed in customer service supervisors that have made the biggest positive or even negative impact on your experiences? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments.
Until next time, keep diving deep and stay curious.